how I've built habits has been a couple of different ways. One has been starting with an accountability partner, somebody who I could report to every day and say, I hit this workout or I didn't hit this workout. I did this or I didn't. And when I had that daily accountability for somebody that I respected and admired and wanted to be like and didn't want to let down, that was always the place for me where it was easy to follow through on my word. Sometimes when I was just starting out a habit, I didn't want to, I didn't care about my own self. I could let myself down. I could say I'm going to the gym and not go because I didn't care about, I didn't have enough confidence in myself. But after a certain point, I said, what am I doing here? I do want to go to the gym. How do I make it easier for me to go to the gym?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man Podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bobbbaaaay. Each week with our guest episodes, I try to put the spotlight on an expert who can help us reach our inner potential. He's on a mission to help 1 million people build better habits. He's the host of the Danny Miranda Podcast, where he's had guests such as Gary Vee, Nick Bare, Tom Bilyeu, Greg McKeown, and more. I mean, this man has been on fire with some of these guests. He's completed challenges such as 75 hard, 60 minutes of meditation for 60 days, and he's even done 5 days without time or technology, which just, God, I can't even imagine that. That just like makes me anxious thinking about it out loud. Today on the podcast, Danny Miranda, baby. There he is.
Bobby, it's such an honor to be here. As a fan of your podcast, a fan of you, I'm honored and thrilled that you invited me on here, and I'm super excited to talk about whatever we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, man. I mean, I gotta say the love is very mutual because listening to you on your podcast and really like kind of understanding how you've gotten to this point in your career, I have a lot of love and support for this journey you've been on because I really feel and hear a very similar version of myself. And we're not that much different in age. I think I'm only 2 years older than you, but I very much see so much alignment in values and desires and whys. And when you talk, and I don't mean this lightly, like you are pure, you're very genuine. You're doing this for a clear purpose that is so much bigger than you. It's not about trying to make Danny the world's biggest podcaster, even though he's going to sell Madison Square Garden. I know that. And it's not about making the most amount of money. It's genuinely about wanting to help people. And I really admire that about you. And that's what has gotten me even more excited to have you on the podcast, to learn more about you, start paying attention to you more, because I really do see you as doing it for all the right reasons, which just gets me really excited.
I appreciate that, man. I feel that in my heart. And it's a real honor to use myself as a conduit to help other people and to experiment on myself and do those habits and do those crazy things, right? And like, see how far can I take myself and what did I learn from this that I can give to other people? That's what I'm here to do.
You're doing it. You're absolutely doing it. Talk to me about how does this from 2019 to where you are today? There's a different version of Danny. I don't know who Danny was in 2019, but I see him as in 2022, and I just talked about everything about him, of who he is, and it's like you're a walking, talking, just like light for a lot of people. What's happening in that two-ish, 3 years that's allowing you to evolve into the person that you are today?
I created this person, this new version of myself. I was somebody who only cared about himself. I was somebody who didn't think about what my actions were on other people. I was somebody who was undisciplined, couldn't do what they said they were going to do. And I said, I don't like these things about myself. How can I become a different person? What are the qualities of the type of person that I want to be? And, day after day, I wrote them down and then read them every day. And after 6 months, I was such a different person that my parents started calling me Danny 2.0. Little did they know, the folder that I had created and written down was called Danny 2.0. So I had changed so much to the point where they said and were calling me a new version of me. It was crazy.
Danny 2.0.
Yeah.
How do you have the confidence to be in a position where you, outside looking in, you have financial security, you're making great money. Outside looking at, your parents are probably like, you should be fine. You have a job. You were building, I believe it was like e-commerce websites, templates. And, to anybody, it might seem like Danny's successful, but internally, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. To then say, I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to try to make that change. Like, it's not easy to do. It's a big internal battle that you have to find the motivation and inspiration within you to finally take those steps. How do you find that within you to actually do that?
Yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to my parents because they raised me with knowing that I was loved. And when you know you are loved, it allows you to make decisions where it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, because at the end of the day, you have the love and support of your parents, your grandparents, your family. Like, my entire family is so strong and powerful that it's like, I feel loved and I know I'm loved. And so none of this matters from like, oh, what is this person going to think? What is that person going to think? And I think a lot of it stems from, I know I'm loved. I know at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And so that's where I get the confidence from.
Man, I'm telling you, bro, we are very much, I'm telling you, it's weird hearing you say that, because that's exactly how I felt graduating in top business school, having the confidence to start my own podcast and go an opposite route than the majority of my class, because my parents were like, you can do this, but just know when your loans kick in, that's on you. Like, we've supported you up to these 18 years, but like, when it's time to fly, you gotta go. You gotta start flapping those wings and pay those bills. So I hear you on the love. And I think that's it's always a really interesting, I learned this through the first podcast, Purpose in the Youth, but it was always something I really took note of when I was interviewing people was, what was their upraising like? Because it really ends up molding the person, who they become, the way they see the world, the way they carry themselves. You become the product of your environment, essentially.
Yeah. And I also want to say, I don't think your past is equal to your future, and
Agreed.
Your past doesn't mean
you can't
who
change.
You are. Yeah. But I have to acknowledge that I did have it easier, from the sense of, when you feel loved, when you feel like everything's good, that's easier than somebody who grows up and they didn't have two parents that loved them. That's a different situation. I can't speak to that. But what I would encourage that person to do is seek out other people who didn't feel love in their childhood, and look at their story and see those people who feel love after a certain point, because there are people who have broken through. There are people who do feel whole inside. So yeah, I don't think that just because it happened at one point in your life where you didn't receive love, that doesn't mean that you aren't going to receive love or feel love for yourself in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. The past is definitely it leads you into the person who you are today, but it has no weight as to who that person is that you could evolve to and become in the future. Talking about this mission though, to want to help 1 million people, it's a pretty strong, like, I want to impact 1 million people. I want to help them build better habits from your own. Yeah. And the key is the help build better habits, which I think is really a great message and thing to want to do for people, because I think that can then just ripple into anything else that you want to do in your life. From your own experience, what have you learned about how to build new habits? I think we both have gone through our own personal experience where, like, when I have something I want to, like a new habit, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's like we're off and running pretty quickly, but I have to remember there was a time in life where I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to start. It was very overwhelming.
Yeah, it's crazy, because when I look back and I came to that mission, I said to myself, what has been the most impactful thing in my life so far? What have I done for myself? And it was really like, I had built better habits. I had created habits for myself that were impactful, that were making me the type of person that I wanted to be. And so when I framed it like that, it was very important, because I didn't really have a focus. And when I did find that focus, it was just on reflection for my previous habits that I built. For me, how I've built habits has been a couple of different ways. One has been starting with an accountability partner, somebody who I could report to every day and say, I hit this workout or I didn't hit this workout. I did this or I didn't. And when I had that daily accountability for somebody that I respected and admired and wanted to be like and didn't want to let down, that was always the place for me where it was easy to follow through on my word. Sometimes when I was just starting out a habit, I didn't want to, I didn't care about my own self. I could let myself down. I could say I'm going to the gym and not go because I didn't care about, I didn't have enough confidence in myself. But after a certain point, I said, what am I doing here? I do want to go to the gym. How do I make it easier for me to go to the gym? I tell somebody that I respect and admire that I'm going. And that was the unlock. And then after doing that enough times, it got to the point where I didn't want to let myself down. So it was almost like training wheels using that accountability partner.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I've heard you talk about that in previous podcasts, and I love that idea of like having the accountability partner. But I also want to challenge it and say that if you're somebody that doesn't have somebody that you can hold you accountable, say you're in an environment of people that aren't inspiring you, aren't motivating you, you got to find a way. You got to find a way to go internal. You got to find a way to, even if it's just making a checkbox and checking it off, like it is that though. It's finding a way to either have somebody to hold you accountable, or what I love what you said is that you went from not wanting to let down somebody to not wanting to let down yourself, which I think is the complete perspective shift of then allowing yourself to go, I'm doing this for me. I know that if I don't show up, I'm my own biggest critic. I'm going to be pissed about myself, regardless if people don't realize this, because I didn't actually follow through with what I said I was going to do.
Yeah. And for me, if I look at 3 of the most important accountability partners I've had in my life, each one of them has been not somebody in my physical reality. They've all been coaches through the internet or people through the internet who I've become friends with. So I think that's a key point too, is like, just because you don't see an accountability partner in your day-to-day life doesn't mean that you can't find one through the internet.
Yeah, the internet is so powerful, man. That's a great example. I know we were just talking about Harry Remler before here. I've never met him in person, but I've communicated with enough where, like, if I saw him in person, I would give him the biggest bear hug as if I hadn't seen my friend in 10 years, because the internet just allows you to really build some authentic and genuine conversations, or, have genuine conversations with people that you've never actually physically met. And it's just so beautiful what the internet can provide for people.
Yeah. And on the accountability piece, you were using drama as your accountability when you first started, right? So it's like, it's crazy. It's so cool.
This man, Danny's so dialed. Ladies and gentlemen, we did a podcast. Let me tell you this. I'll have it linked up in the description below when this podcast comes out. But last week I was on Danny's podcast, and this man, I was like, there were multiple times I was like scratching my head or like laughing because I couldn't believe what he was asking me, because I knew he had dug in the trenches. So the fact that you're still like fully bringing it back full circle, man, you're just you're phenomenal at what you do, man. You really are.
Thank you. And I think the core of that, because I've never really thought about why I go to the trenches, why I dig so deep on people. I love people. Right? Like I really want people to be happy, and I really want to see people happy. And if there's something that I can do to make someone happy, the biggest way is to just dive into them and really get to know them at a deep level and not waste their time. And not to say that, like, if you don't do research, that doesn't mean you're wasting their time. But it's just like, I love seeing that smile on somebody's face, like, oh, you care about me. Yeah. It's that way of saying, like, you care, right?
Yeah. And I would challenge anyone that's listening that you don't even have to be a podcast host to want to go to that level. I think it's all about, and something that, how do I approach my daily living? How do I make the experience of where I am right now profound for everybody? That this is a moment that, I don't care if we're just at a coffee shop, that they're like, I'm going to remember this moment. Or if we're at a bar, or like, it doesn't matter the environment I'm in. It's just, I put the pressure on myself to create an experience for the people around me. Now, sometimes that forces me to be the loud guy, the one that's obnoxious and like grabbing everyone and trying to bring the energy together. But I want to create an experience that people don't forget. And I want to be that light that can hopefully uplift people on days that they're not feeling all that great.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's really not about podcasting at all. It's about bringing joy. Can you bring a little bit of joy to a human being? Yeah. In any moment? And if you just have that question in your mind, how can I bring joy in this moment? The outcomes you'll get and the answers you'll get are sometimes extraordinary, and sometimes they're so small that they become extraordinary.
Yeah, you also start to live a lot differently, where you're truly in the present. You're not worried about getting to the weekend, getting to this, to the holiday coming up, or that you're traveling for this. Like even today, I catch myself like thinking about this morning. I'm thinking about like, what are we doing tonight? Where are we going? I'm like, wait, hold on. I got a full day of amazing things happening. Just focus on these moments, right? Like, don't worry about what's to come later today. And I think that's where then it's like through all these little things I have scheduled throughout the day, creating internal experiences within each single one. And then it just makes one incredible day, and it's just all that energy just ripples.
Yeah, that's why I put the title of your podcast being "The Journey is the Destination," because I feel so strongly that you're living that ethos of being present, understanding that like this is it. This is the moment. Game. Yeah,
this is right now, Danny. This is the grand finale. This podcast is the grand finale of my life at this moment in time.
Yeah,
and then later on, when I go do something else, coffee with a friend, that's the grand finale. Every moment is the grand finale. And it's not always going to be that butterflies and the energy's flowing, but like, how can you truly treat every single moment like this is it? This is the moment I've been waiting for. Here it is. Let's fucking embrace it.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's so true.
I want to go back to habits though. You previously, and I don't know if this is still true, but in March of 2020, you had cut drinking. You also had started to step away from gambling. Both of which I did 75 days without alcohol. That was in of itself a complete perspective shift for me. Talk to me about how you've been able to break habits and where you are at with both of those. Because I think both of those are separate that I think a lot of people can relate to. And then two, just the act of whether it's a short-term break from a habit or the long-term, there is a process to breaking those habits. And I think people can replicate into things, whether it's bad dieting, around toxic people. I think there's a magnitude of ways people can incorporate that into different parts of their life.
Yeah. So for alcohol, I stopped drinking alcohol when I did 75 hard for the first time, September 2019 to December of 2019. And that was 75 days, no alcohol. But after that, I realized like, I actually don't like drinking alcohol. Like I went out without drinking. It was not an issue for me. And then afterwards, I took my first drink on December 10th, 2020 or whatever it was. And I was like, I kind of want to be back in day 48. Like when I didn't want to do this, like, wow, this isn't, and it made me reframe the celebration. Like, why do we celebrate by drinking alcohol? What's going on there? Like, so much of what we do is just a script that's running that we never even question or don't even know why we do. And when I started drinking again, I was like, I don't even like this. Like, this isn't enjoyable for me. I'm not gaining anything from it. So I honestly can't remember the last time I drank. Wow. And it was just it's not something that interests me on any level. Nothing against it. And if an opportunity presents itself where I want to drink, I'll drink, but I don't have any desire to, and I don't want to.
It's amazing.
Gambling has been a more difficult one for me. And I definitely don't want to sit here like I want to help 1 million people build better habits. That doesn't mean I have all the answers for habits. I'm trying to learn as much as I can right now.
Aren't we all, brother?
Yeah. So I had a real difficult time with gambling from December of 2021 to January of 2021, like a month of gambling. Couldn't stop myself. It was every day. It was difficult for me. And then I stopped in mid-January to like a week ago. And I gambled last week. And I don't know why I gambled last week. I want to say it's because of March Madness and seeing that. But I gambled once and I haven't gambled for the last week. And that was a huge improvement for me because I realized like, I don't have to be addicted to this forever. I could do it and not do it ever again. And so I don't know. Yeah. What do you think? Like, how are those things you dealt with, are negative habits you dealt with? Like, what would you suggest to somebody like me in this situation?
For the gambling specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. I had about a month ago, I posted something on my Instagram story wanting to do calls with podcast listeners and just get their feedback on what they thought of the podcast. And one of the guys that I spoke to was dealing with gambling. that was a thing that he's currently going through, and he's been through the highs and lows of it. What I had told him was, from what I can recall, was one, and I think what you're going through is differently. One, for him, he was around a lot of people that like to gamble. So I said, you have to potentially start breaking your way from these environments because you're going to feel the pressure to want to gamble. Two, I said, give yourself some self-compassion for like, okay, you've gambled, you've maybe made some bad decisions. He also had said that he had honestly like broken some friendships because of it. And I said, give yourself some self-compassion. What's done is done. But think about the person you want to become in the future. And is there a way that you can sometimes gamble, or do you need to cold turkey it? Or like you have to kind of decide for you. Like that's a game that I'm constantly always battling with alcohol. It's like after 75 days of no booze, like then I've done like back in January, I did 30 days without it because I was getting ready for the marathon. So like the marathon is my excuse to finally take a break. But then soon after I'm back to it and I'm drinking and I'm like having fun. And then there's this constant like, can I want to live where it's balanced and I just have a couple drinks, but then there's times where I send it and I'm like, I don't know, should I be doing this? So we're all humans. We all have our vices. We all make mistakes, but give yourself the ability to make those mistakes and just try to get a little bit better. And as long as you're getting better with it in time, I think it's fine. I think it's really hard for people just to lights out, I'm done forever, good. But I like your perspective on the way you look at alcohol. It's like, I don't need it, but it doesn't mean like if I don't want to drink, I can't have a drink. Maybe that's the right way of approaching for gambling for you. It's like, I don't need to do this as often as I was, but like when I see an opportunity, these are my guidelines. Like I'm allowed to place X amount of dollars, and whether I win or lose, that's it. Like these are the 3-step rules that Danny lives by for gambling. And you choose twice a month. I don't know what that looks like, but it's like building a playbook for what works for you and then living by it.
I like that. Yeah, that was really helpful. And I think that, people, there's this idea that like a yoga teacher is the one, somebody who practices yoga every day and teaches it is like actually the one who needs it the most. And I love that concept so much because it's like a guide, not a guru. And I'm trying to do the same thing with habits. I'm trying to deconstruct my habits to figure out like how I can find better habits, how I can build better habits. I want to help others because I know that that's how I can be my best self, not because I know the answers. I think not to cut you off, I think it's just coming to the like honest truth of the reality that you're never going to be the expert. You're always the student. And when you accept that, you can come from a place of like, hey, I'm Danny. I'm trying to build better habits for myself, but I'm also trying to help all of you do the same. Like I always say that in my solo podcast in the beginning. I don't have all the answers. This is just my beard of wisdom. Take it, what you want from it. If you enjoy it, great. If it doesn't make any sense and you don't like it, fine. I don't have the answers, but here's my perspective. Here's what I'm learning. And I think it's all of that like approach of you're learning, you're trying to become a better version of yourself. You're also not just talking, you're actually leading by actions. That's something I definitely want to hit on today, like the 75 hard, 60 minutes of 60 days of meditation, 5 days of no technology. Like these are like pretty solid challenges. I'll admit, I tried doing 75 days hard, got 20 days in, tossed in the towel. That was honestly weak. I hate that I have to say that because I've been really good in my life. When I set out to something, I do something and I forget what I slacked on. It was the dieting one day, or like I drank and I was like, you're an idiot. Like you're done. Like start over if you want to keep doing this. But what allows you to do these types of things? People ask me like, why would you run a marathon? Like you don't need to do that. Just go run 5 miles and call it a day. You don't need to do 75 hard. You don't need to do 60 minutes of these meditation, 60 minutes, 60 days of meditation. You don't need to go sit in the woods for 5 days with no clock, no cell phone, no nothing. Like, why do you do these things, Danny? I think I do them because I want to experience all of life. And so often in our world, it's easy to shortchange ourselves. At least in the United States of America, it's like a world of abundance. We have everything we need. We have more food. The biggest thing that, people are obese, and it's like we have more technology than we need. We have more information coming at us. So I think I do these things because I want to live in a world of what am I capable of? We live in an easy world. And so how can I make it more difficult for myself? And in that difficultness, can I find something? Can I find who I truly am? Can I find more? Can I find answers that I might not have? You find answers, I'm sure, on mile 20 of the marathon that you didn't know you had. And it's like that. Like when you go through a 60-minute meditation, you say like 40 minutes in, I'm good. Like I don't need to do any more. And then, after 20 days of doing that, you start saying, oh, like that wasn't that long at all. So in that period, you found some growth. And so I guess that's what I'm really seeking is growth and making things a little more challenging for myself than otherwise it would have been.
I'll tell you right now, I always tell people, when you get to mile 20 of the marathon, that's when it actually begins.
Exactly.
The first 20, there's nothing to be said there. It's just the warm up. But yeah, I really respect and appreciate like that perspective of going into these things, because once again, nobody's telling you to do this, Danny. Yeah. Right? Like it's totally just you challenging yourself. And there's so much like that you learn about yourself through it, the mental sharpness, right? Like it's just like so much comes from doing these things that nobody is comfortable with doing. And I feel like that's probably a common theme that you've seen since leaving your job in 2019 is leaning into discomfort, starting a podcast, doing these challenges. Like how important has that been into the growth of you of like scary, don't know if this is going to work, don't know what I'm actually doing, but I think I want to do it. Like I should do this.
Yeah. It's listening to that inner voice, man, and listening and following through on that inner voice. When I first came across 75 Hard, the first night I come across it, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this tomorrow. Like nothing's stopping me. I'm doing this tomorrow. I'm going to complete this no matter what. Like it's getting done. When I first, dude, I love how you were on phone calls with people who listen to podcasts, because that's how my podcast came to be. I first started reaching out to people on Twitter and started having amazing phone conversations with them. And I was like, holy smokes, I got to record these. This is so valuable for me. This is so valuable for the other person. It's probably valuable to some random people who don't even, who just want to be a part of this conversation, but don't want to say anything. So that's how the podcast came to be. And listening to that inner voice of like, okay, this feels right. Keep going. Like that has been so key, because I almost didn't publish my podcast because I said, who needs another podcast when I write the day before? But I said, you know what? Like this feels right to me. And so I did it and I pressed publish. And I'm so grateful I did, because I've gained so much from it that I never could have predicted. And so listening to that inner voice is so key. And that allows me to lean into discomfort, because when I listen to the inner voice, I know that it's pushing me to be more. It's pushing me that I can be more tomorrow than I am today. And that's not to say that I'm not happy with where I'm at. I am very content with where I'm at. I'm grateful for the present, but that doesn't mean I don't want more in the future. And so that's the dichotomy I'm dealing with.
Wow. That's crazy to hear. That's how the podcast came to life, was just from conversations with people that lead you to going, maybe I should just record these. Let's actually do this. The podcast itself, I know I had mentioned in the intro and something that we had chatted about, I think even on your podcast, but like for what's it, 2 years in right now? Technically 2 years in?
1.5. We're 18 months in.
Okay, bro. For 18 months in, you've had some heavy hitters.
It's crazy.
Gary Vee, Nick Bear. I believe you had Colin and Samir at one point. Tom Bilyeu. Like just some big heaters, bro.
Yeah.
It probably feels good knowing it's just like it's the work ethic is what it's to me standing out.
Thank you. It's crazy because there's so many books I read. I love books. Like since I was a kid, I have so many books on my bookshelf, and I'm sitting there reading this book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, in March of 2020. And by October, Kamal Ravikant, the author of the book that directly changed my life, is talking to me and having an incredible conversation at midnight. And we're both loving it. And we're both having so much joy. And it's like, what's happening? Like, this is crazy. I'm talking to the people who have impacted my life at a deep level. And it feels so good and feels so heartwarming. And it's worth more to me than any amount of money. Is just like talking to people who impact you. It's like, is magical. And I just set, like, I didn't know that I was going to start doing 3 a week, and now I'm doing 2 a week. But when I started, I just wanted to do 1 episode a week. I thought that would be great. And then I ended up having 20 episodes in the backlog. And I said, wow, this is crazy. Like, I'm having so much fun. I love doing this. Let me just put out a bunch this week. And then I just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And so I think that's the reason why I've been able to create extraordinary results in only 18 months, is because I've just decided to do more because I love doing it. It could be like, someone could look at it and say, like, this is hard work. And in some respect, it is hard work. But in another respect, it's just me living in my purpose. And when I've strayed from that purpose over the past 18 months, I stopped producing podcasts. I stopped, feeling joy for every moment. Incredible things stopped happening because I stopped living in my purpose, which is just to make the world happier, healthier, and wiser. It's like what I want on my gravestone. And when I'm doing that, I'm at the most peace. I'm at the most joy. I'm bringing the most value to the world. And what I'm doing to other people looks like hard work, but to me is just play.
Yeah, that's how you know you're doing the right thing. It is work. It's taking time, energy, and attention. So no matter me going to the gym and working out, that's work. Me doing this podcast with you, this is work. Us going to a coffee meetup, that's work. Like, everything essentially is work, but it's the lens of which you see it as purposeful. This is like passion. This is fulfillment. This is something you would continue to do even if you made $0 doing. Whereas somebody else goes, if I'm not getting paid to do this, why in the world would I do that? Which then becomes a game of, that's how you find the thing. I always challenge people. It's like, if you don't know where you're going, ask yourself, what would I do if I had never had to worry about money again? How would I spend my time? Like, I travel the world, whatever. Okay, cool. But like, do that for a couple of years. And then what would you want to do after that? That's the path. That's what you should be pursuing, because it's not about the money. It's about what you're truly passionate about. And I'm curious, like, and I've had these moments in my podcast career. How do you internalize those big guests, right? Like, these are big time moments, whether it's the Gary Vee, whether it's the author you were just talking about. Like, these people impact you. You see it get booked on the calendar. You prep, you do the podcast, it rolls out. And then it's kind of like, it happened. It's part of like your past. Our boy Gary Vee always talks about, like, the biggest day of his life and the worst day of his life will be when he buys the jets. Cause it's like, this is the thing we're chasing for. And then we've gotten it. And now it's like, we just ride off into the sunset. So like, how do you internalize some of these big milestones along the way?
Each guest is not an end to anything, right?
You're so good.
That's how I internalize it.
I know you do. That's why you're so good, because it's fucking true.
And if you view the guest as the end, if you view getting what you want as the end for any pursuit, it's like you're going to stop doing it and you're not going to enjoy the next moment. But it's like, I view getting a guest and booking a guest and having a guest on the podcast, I view that as the beginning. Gary Vaynerchuk or just anyone. Like, it's the beginning. Every person is the beginning. It's the beginning of a relationship, a friendship, potentially something down the line that you couldn't predict in this moment. And so I love the art of the conversation. I love figuring out how to bring someone joy. I love doing this. And it's so funny, because when you said, what would you do that you would do for not making money? I wrote down here that Joe Rogan didn't make money for his first 6 years of podcasting.
Yeah.
And when you frame it like that, when I heard that, I was like, holy smokes. And when also Joe Rogan said that his first 3 years of podcasting, he was terrible at it. I got so much joy and excitement, because that's the best in the world, like, by a numbers perspective. And if the best in the world is saying that he didn't get paid for his first 3 years, or he didn't get paid for his first 6 years, and he didn't even think he was good for his first 3, just gave me so much hope that it's just about the path. It's about doing the small things savagely well, as JT Barnett said, and just building up over time, building to something at the end where after 10 years you say, holy smokes. It's like if you take something you're pretty good at already and you apply something like incredible levels of discipline and savage of the small things, incredible things are going to happen. There's just no other possibility that could occur.
Yeah. So well said, man. It really is. The people that do it at the highest level, there's no other way around it than to just simply do the work behind the scenes. I know we were talking about Colin and Samir on your podcast, I think real briefly before we even jumped on this podcast, but like they're a great example of putting in 10 plus years into YouTube. And now in the last 6 to 10 months, they've had this massive swing on their channel. And that's not, it's purely because they've just been consistently putting in the work. They have the lacrosse channel, they rebrand, they start something new, they do Colin Samir, they still navigate trying to build it. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, they found their lane. And now you're going to see the hockey stick growth because the years of repetition and putting in the hours are coming to fruition. All the seeds that were planted years ago are now fully blooming.
And I love how Samir says, we put those 10 years of work in and now we're just starting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And that's the truth. That's how I would view it. And that's how I'm thinking about this podcasting thing. It's like build for 10 years and then like you finally start.
Yeah, it's true. Quick break from today's episode and then we'll get right back to it. Today's episode is brought to you by Tenzo Tea, the greatest matcha brand in all the world. If you head over to tenzotea.co, use my promo code TheBeardedMan, all one word, get you 25% off every order. I've been drinking this product, matcha, Tenzo Tea, is matcha, as I said. I've been drinking this product since the top of 2021 and it has been an absolute game changer. The show is all about helping us reach our inner potential. One way to do that is by making sure you are energized throughout the day. I'm not talking about slamming cold brew coffees every hour of the day. I'm not talking about buying Red Bulls and chugging those. Don't get me wrong. I love both of those, but you got to be very mindful of how much caffeine you're intaking during the week and you're trying to be productive at the same time. So the way I've done that, if you're looking visually, is Tenzo. I put a couple scoops of this with a little bit of almond milk every single morning, every single afternoon, twice a day. And it keeps me feeling sustained energy throughout the day. No crazy high, no immediate crash, just nice and level as I'm just crushing through the day, checking things off. 64% of Americans, adults that drink coffee every day, pay the price with dehydration, jitters, anxiety, and headaches. Switching out the morning coffee for matcha helps to stay level-headed, focused, and avoid the coffee crash. Tenzo Matcha contains natural caffeine and L-theanine, which helps you be energized and focus like a Zen monk. I feel focused right now as I'm recording this podcast like a Zen monk. There's 36 milligrams of caffeine per each half teaspoon. And as I said, naturally occurring L-theanine, which helps you and makes you feel good. I drink this stuff, as I said, twice a day, and it's been a game changer. If you like some Tenzo, which I highly recommend you try out, head over to tenzotea.co. Use my promo code TheBeardedMan, all one word. That's 25% off every order. Once again, tenzotea.co, TheBeardedMan, all one word. Give it a try. It's going to keep you sustained throughout the day. Good energy levels. You're going to crush through the day. Your to-do list is going to get crossed off. You're going to be wanting to work on the next day to-do list, but you're going to remind yourself, it's time to ease our way in. It's time to cool ourselves down. So try it out, and I hope you guys and gals enjoy it. Now back to today's episode. What have you learned about people or listening through podcasting? Because you're chatting with people once, twice a week on a very intimate level that I forget as podcasters. Like, this is a very vulnerable thing we're pretty much allowed to do on a weekly basis that like not a lot of people do ever. So it really is something special that I try not to take for granted because it really allows us to drop into some really raw, real, authentic conversations, which then allows us to do that on a daily basis with people that we kind of just meet randomly. So what have you learned about people and or just with listening?
People are incredible. And this is something I learned when I lived in San Diego, and people were so friendly, and particularly Uber drivers were so friendly.
That's right, baby. Top 2% in the world. Hit me up.
Of course. 19,002 rides, baby. And I learned when living in San Diego that everybody has a story. Everybody has something really interesting about them that if you frame the right way, if you have the ability to ask questions, you will find out. And everybody's got their own story in their own way. And it's like the ability to listen and the ability to really ask those questions are what differentiate your experience on life from being or just having a mundane experience to having a magical experience. And one example that sticks out is my Uber driver. I landed in Minnesota one time, and my Uber driver's telling me about these books he's reading and all this stuff. One of the books was A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
That's one of your favorites, I believe, right?
Yeah, one of my favorites. I highly recommend A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I read the book. It's incredible. And 2 years later, I read it again. And I was like, oh my God, I never really thanked this guy for what he did for me. So I do some research, find his phone number, have him on my podcast, and we just have an incredible experience. Yeah. Full circle, right? How crazy is that?
I didn't know you had him on the pod.
How wild.
Wow.
So it's like, that's what I mean is like of every relationship being the beginning and every friendship being the beginning and every moment potentially being a new beginning. I didn't know that I would have a podcast 2 years later, that I would have him on. It's just like, we don't know what we're doing here in life, and the dots only connect looking backwards, as you would say.
Steve Jobs, baby.
Yeah.
You're fucking hilarious, bro.
Yeah. And so it's just wild. Like, everybody's got a story. Your story and my story might just be beginning. We have no idea what it's going to lead to. And it's cool, man. This whole life thing is so cool. If you're living in your purpose, feeling enjoyment, just being excited every day. So I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah. What do you think has been one of the biggest sacrifices you've had to overcome along this like self-development journey? I've definitely had my own fair share, and I'm curious to hear what some of those sacrifices might be for you.
I think my biggest sacrifice has been letting go of the notion that I'm perfect or that I can do it perfectly. For example, like I set out this mission to do 75 hard every single day of 2022. Didn't work out for me, even though I had done the program before. I set out this mission to not gamble anymore, starting in January 23rd, 2020. Didn't work out. Like, I'm a human being, and just because I make a declaration of like, this is how it's going to be, doesn't mean that that's actually how it's going to be. And I need to let go of the notion of thinking that I can predict exactly what's going to happen, because the present moment knows what's going to happen. And just because I believe in this moment, the podcast is going to be the number one podcast in the world, and I'm going to impact 1 million people, build better habits. Who knows? That's just what I believe in this moment, but that doesn't mean that's how it's actually going to manifest. And what actually manifests is the truth. And so being more comfortable with the truth and letting go of the need to predict the future has been has been a huge sacrifice for me, and one that I'm better off for making.
Well, I think it's also creating a true north for yourself that almost seems impossible to accomplish, because then it's always going to be something you're working towards, right? Like 1 million is definitely very attainable. You can look at that through like, if you get 1 million podcast listenerships over the course of your career, if you get 1 million downloads, that's 1 million, or whatever it might be. But I think it's so important to create something that's so big that it feels almost like it's never going to be attained, because you're then always going to have this journey to travel on, this problem that you're trying to solve. But I will say this too, what I loved about your point of like, set out to do 75 hard, didn't hit it. Set out to not gamble, didn't do it. Having that self-compassion and understanding actually allows you to just keep moving forward. Because anytime I've gotten so internal with myself of like, didn't set out and accomplish the thing I wanted to do, didn't do this, didn't do that, all I'm doing is I'm just putting the brakes on myself from actually making progress forward mentally and physically. I am stuck at a stop sign and I don't know where to go because I'm so internalized on like this past decision, this past mistake. But the moment that I started to give myself that self-compassion, say, you know what? It's okay. You learned something. You're not perfect. You're never going to be perfect. Like, that's fine. So let's keep moving forward. Like, you're going to slip, you're going to fall, you're going to make mistakes. But the faster you get up and get moving, the more progress you're going to make. And I think that's clear that you've been able to internalize that, which is a really, really good perspective to have.
I think that's such an important point, because when I look at the difference between me gambling in December versus me gambling a week ago, it was the ability to bounce back and give myself love. When I was gambling in December, it was just a cycle, a nonstop. Like, I deserve to have this. I feel awful. I'm the worst. Like, why am I doing this again? Like, just that thought loop over and over and over again, nonstop. And so now the thought loop is, I love myself. It's all good. You make a mistake, get back up. Like, you can decide to be a different person in this moment. And the practical tip for that has been writing I love myself 100 times, which we mentioned in my podcast. Yeah. The reason why I was able to bounce back a week ago and not gamble again in the past week is because I have this practice, is because I said to myself, it's all good. I love myself. Like, that this is just one part of the journey. And now I get to talk about this part of the journey on a podcast or whatever. But it just, like, I love myself. So it's all good. And writing that out 100 times every single day for the past now 22 days, 24 days, something like that. So I love it,
Danny, unbelievable, because literally you walked right into, like, literally the next thing I wanted to bring up was that. So it's like unbelievable.
We're connected.
We're connected. But other than writing it down, since we just acknowledged that, how else do you allow yourself to love yourself?
I think
that makes sense.
I think loving yourself is doing the difficult things that you might not want to do in any given day. Loving yourself is going to the gym. Loving yourself is meditating. Loving yourself is going to bed at the right time. And also understanding, if you don't do those things, to have some compassion, not excuse. Like, there could be situations that could arise that could allow you not to do certain things. But to say, okay, like, that took precedent in this situation, and this is what I'm going to learn from this situation. But the thing is, with this practice of writing it down 100 times, it just pops up into your mind at random times. It just comes in. I love myself. Like, that thought just came in because I programmed that thought in by writing it 100 times. Another way to do it is affirmations. I want to start creating affirmation tracks where I'm just talking over the mic, like, I'm powerful, I'm strong, I'm capable, I love myself, I am the best version of myself right now. And if I could do that, because I listened to Ray Lewis affirmation tracks, which I highly recommend. I am Ray Lewis. You could type that in Spotify or YouTube, and just listening to that over and over and over again, it fuels me. So yeah, affirmation tracks are big for loving yourself.
I'll have to send you, David Goggins just posted something last week, and he's hilarious. He was talking about how people, he had like his injury with, are you a David Goggins fan? He had his injury with running a couple months back. And so there's this next video of him running, and he talks about how, there's a lot of naysayers out there that said I wouldn't come back from running. And he said, so what I did was I created an affirmation track of all you fucking haters. And instead of using the Calm app to go to sleep, which has, the sounds of ocean and birds, I played your track.
Yeah, that's great.
But all that to say, it's like you're reprogramming your mind. You're reframing the reality that you see, which then allows you to make different decisions, which then allows these compound decisions that add up in time.
Yeah, let me ask you about this. Okay, so this is something I've noticed with a bunch of different people. Are you fueled by negativity or positivity? And does it matter? I'll give you a couple examples on both camps. One is fueled by negativity. David Goggins is the example right there, using all the haters. Yeah. Michael Jordan is another great one of using all the naysayers. But you want to look at somebody fueled by positivity. Look at, I would say, Mr. Beast. When I watched him on Joe Rogan, he's like just full of love, full of energy, wants to do the best for other people, wants to give to other people. Yeah. Joe Rogan might be another example of someone fueled by positivity.
Matt D'Avella, I would say, is fueled by positivity.
Yeah. Is there one, is it better one way or another? Does it matter? Could you take someone who's fueled by negativity and make them fueled by positivity? And would that actually increase their output and make them better in some way? Like, what's your thoughts on this?
Why not be fueled by both?
Yeah, maybe that's the answer.
I'm fueled by
dark
both.
Side.
I'm
Like
literally
everyone's got that dark side.
I'm fueled by both. If I got a comment from somebody or a DM saying your podcast inspired me, this is what I learned, I'm taking the moment to send them a voice memo or expressing gratitude, like, wow, this is incredible. Yeah. And then when I'm seeing TikTok comments of people like, you don't know what you're talking about, you're privileged, you've been handed everything in your life, I laugh because I'm just like, they don't know me, they don't know my story. So let me just keep winning. I've always looked at negativity like this. For anybody to have a negative opinion about me, whether it's my podcast, whether it's me and what I do with my life, they have to consume me. They have to spend their time and energy understanding me. They need to then use energy to formulate an opinion. And then they need to use energy to spit it out, whether it's keyboard warrior, telling me in person, whatever it might be, for me to feel the feedback. So I've already won on 4 accounts in that scenario where I've gotten your attention, I've gotten you to consume, I've gotten you to listen, and now I've gotten you to talk about me. I won. So I'm not going to cave to it. It's not going to bother me. Once again, you're just fueling the fire within me because I'm clearly making enough noise that you have to jump in and say something. So I think everyone's different. Some people probably are more fueled by positivity. Some are more fueled by negativity, but I think you can do both.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to take it.
What about you?
I'd say I'm much more fueled by positivity, much more fueled by love. And
well, at the end of the day, it's like, I would choose love and positivity.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to not acknowledge that, like, if I do get hate, it's just as equal.
It's interesting because I get hate. I don't think about it as a personal. I can't take it personal. I don't like it. It's like I can't even use it because it's not personal to me. Like someone today commented like, dude, this YouTube video sucks, basically. And I was like, dude, I'm so sorry about that. I hope you're super well. It's like where my mind and heart goes right away.
It's great.
So it's like, I can't even be like, I want to like show this person and get them. And I think there's some benefit to that, but I just don't hold on to it. I don't have that in my heart. So,
man, such a good perspective to have because there's a lot of people in this world, and I see it on a daily basis that somebody cuts them off and they lose it. They're literally letting the world change the direction of their mood at any moment in time. There was definitely a time in my life, I wouldn't say it was that bad, where I was like, somebody cut me off and I'd freak out, but like, for sure there was a time in my life where I allowed way too many external things to rattle me. But now I'm so much more internal. And it's just been through a lot of years of self-development and like letting go that it's just like, I don't have the time for it, man.
Yeah.
Just
a waste.
Just exactly. So anyone that, comes at you like that, you have the right way of approaching. Like, sorry, but thank you for supporting. Thank you for the comment because it's boosting my analytics.
I don't even view it that way. That's the crazy part. Like, I don't think about, I genuinely go to like, how can this person be whole? Because I've never left a negative comment in my life about someone on their profile.
Because you get it. Because you get it. What's the benefit? How do you benefit from it?
I just don't consume it. If I don't like it, I just stop consuming it.
Yeah. I had listened to episode 46 of your pod, which I think was which is the one you were interviewed on. You made a comment that really caught my attention because I think it's something that a lot of people can have this thought, and I don't think you were intentional about it, but I think it was an example of like a place you were at in your life where you had said that I've been depressed and thought about any at all. And I think when you had said that, you may have actually meant it, or you may have just been in a place where you literally just like have been at that wall, which I for sure have been many times more than people would probably even think or realize. And then it's quickly just like fought back by like, well, slow down. Like, you're good. It's going to be all fine. Like, there's that immediate like put out the fire type of reaction. But I'm curious, like, what has gotten you to that low moment, and how have you learned to dig yourself out of something like that?
It was February 2020, and I was just lost. Like, I had done 75 hard, but now I wasn't living in 75 hard. So I'd increase my self-image as somebody who could get hard things done and who could be the best version of themselves. But then I stopped doing those things for a month. And I was like, what's going on? Like, why do I feel absolutely awful? Oh my God. Like, and it was just the never-ending thought loop of like, I'm stupid. This isn't worth it. Like, what am I doing here? I have no purpose. All this over and over and over again. What got me out of it was COVID and lockdown. I said to myself, I'm either going to get a lot worse in this moment or I'm going to get better. It's like one or the other. Like this is a huge pivotal moment and I get to choose. What I didn't realize was like we all choose in every moment that we make that decision. Are we going to get better in this moment or are we going to get worse? And that decision can have spiraling consequences. And so I think what got me to that place was just a lack of awareness. And what got me out of it was awareness.
Unbelievable how important awareness is in our lives.
Yeah.
Awareness to thoughts, awareness to feelings, awareness to emotions, awareness to situations, and being able to dissociate yourself and just understand it from the outside looking in is like, it just puts everything in such a different perspective. Why am I feeling this? What's the like putting a question mark, being your own detective, your own investigator of why do I feel these ways? Why are these thoughts coming through here? Which then you're able to connect the dots and go, okay, so this is the root of the problem. How do we solve this problem? But we're in it and we allow these things to just keep like a hamster wheel just rolling. It's impossible because you're not aware of like, wait a second, why though? I feel depressed. The person never texts me back. I didn't get the job. I must not be. I must not have the credibility enough to do these things. Blah 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 blah. And it's just like it just keeps going. But when you step out and you're like, it's good, it's fine. You know?
Yeah. Jim Collins. He's an author of Good to Great and just a legendary author. He started this thing called a bug book, Jim's bug book. And what basically was he was treating himself as a bug. Like if he was looking at a bug and the bug's name was Jim and he was observing the bug Jim, what would he find out about that bug? Like, and separating himself and being his own and keeping a book for that of all of his observations about himself. I thought that was a powerful practice. I've never personally done it, but it just puts it in perspective, the importance of separating yourself from what you do every day, separating yourself from your thoughts and just observing them and how much power there is from that place.
The bug book. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Danny, we're going to get into the final five, man. These are the last 5 questions. One sentence answer if possible. Question number 1. How can people learn to give themselves permission to follow their interests and ideas?
By looking inward, by meditating. You said one sentence, but I can go on.
I know you could. Number 2, if you could go back and tell yourself one piece of advice at any point in your life, what would it be and when?
One piece of advice would be to go inward. It would be, there was 24 years of my life where I didn't look at myself or didn't look at my thoughts on a consistent basis. And if I meditated, I would have gotten a lot further, a lot quicker internally, which would have changed my external world.
Amen. Question number 3. What's an area of your life you need to put more effort into?
An area of my life I need to put more effort into is financials, and never really paid much attention to it, but I started tracking my bank account every day and looking at different ways to monetize and make money. And I've always just figured it would take care of itself, but being more intentional about it, I think is going to be something that can improve my life.
It's great. It's beautiful. Once again, just the awareness of knowing what you need to work on is in itself the biggest first step. 4th question. What's the first step that anyone can take to reaching their inner potential?
Meditating.
I love it. 5th and final question. Somebody's listened to the last 56 minutes of this podcast. After they've finished listening to this podcast, what is one challenge you have for the listener today?
Commit to meditating for 20 minutes a day for 1 month using an accountability partner or social media. Say like, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes, and I'm going to be doing this for 30 days. Because if you don't have an accountability partner, social media can be your accountability partner, and update them on your progress every day, or text a friend. So commit to 20 minutes of meditation, because the meditation is what has fueled everything that I'm doing. And yeah, I think that more people need to meditate.
Amen. That was the biggest thing that I had realized when I started listening to podcasts in 2016 was all these different major industry successful people do different things, but the common theme that I all saw them do was meditate. So I was like, this is something that I should probably give a try. And since I've dipped my toes in and still feel like I barely scratched the surface. Danny, this has been, I knew this was going to go so damn smooth, but man, you really are, there's something special about you. And I mean that not lightly. You have an energy about you. You have a purpose to you, a why to you that is so, I really haven't used the word pure really often in my life. And I don't think ever really on this podcast, but you're very pure. And it's so refreshing and it's so inspiring to me. And I love it, man. I think you're a guiding light for people. You're giving people real-time example of somebody that is trying to seek and learn, and you're taking along people for the journey. And I just want you to know I am a genuine fan. I'm a big supporter. I'm so stoked that we like just recently got connected so that I can start like tracking you and watching you and supporting you from here on out. But just a big fan of you, man. And I really appreciated, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll have it linked up in the description below, but the experience that you had created for me being on your show was top tier and something very refreshing, reflective, and honest. And it really meant a lot to me. So I just want to say you're doing a phenomenal job as a host. You're doing a phenomenal job as a creator and as somebody that is just purely documenting their journey along the way. And just honored to have you here today, man.
So much love, man. Thank you for those beautifully kind words. It always means a lot to me when somebody recognizes you, who you admire, and I admire you for your journey and everything you've done. So thank you. That means a lot to me, and I'm incredibly grateful to be here. And I'm so excited to see what the future holds for our relationship and our friendship, because something tells me the dots will all connect with each other.
Well, it's going to be something bright. I'll tell you that. It's going to be something bright. I'll tell you this. If there's a time you're going to break and have a little glass of champagne, it's going to be with your boy someday. I don't know where we're going to be, but hopefully me, you, and Gary Vee will be freaking sipping on a glass of champagne or something.
1000%.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed today's episode, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you're listening in on, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Post it to your IG story. Tag Danny. He's at Hey Danny Miranda. Tag me. That's at Bobbbaaaay. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y. Share the podcast in your IG story. Let us know, what was the biggest takeaway? How did this episode change your perspective? We dove into a lot of different topics today. I'd be really curious to know what you guys and gals took away from this episode. So please post it to your IG story. Let us know what you thought. Also linked up below, I will have the link to not only the episode that I was on with Danny, but also just the Danny Miranda Podcast on all platforms. Please give that a listen. Some top tier guests. I think if you guys and gals are enjoying this show, you will very much enjoy his show as well. So please take a moment to do that. And as well as linked up in the description below, it's just his website, DannyMiranda.com. Is there anywhere else I should be sending the guests after listening to today's podcast?
If somebody made it this far, I would love somebody to tweet me and just give me a muscle emoji. That I just want to, just curious.
Just flexing.
Yeah, just flexing.
Flexing. Yeah. That's at Hey Danny Miranda. Tag him, and if you want, throw me too. I would love to know who's out here flexing. Oh, that's a good one, man. Danny, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Much love, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolute honor. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Bearded Man Podcast.
See ya.